Hello, everybody. We are doing an interview with the beautiful Julia today, and she is going to share a little bit about her health journey and what it was like working with me and how she's doing so much better now. And we're so grateful to have you here, Julia. Thank you so much for taking the time to.
Aw, thank you for having me.
Yes, absolutely. So, can you just start off by sharing a little bit of like your health background?
Yeah, so do you mean my health background?
I guess it's a little bit vague, isn't it? Like, what were some of your struggles that you were going through, like health-wise, before in your journey?
Perfect. So I met Kiria in 2010, a long time ago, 2011, and I was doing pretty well in college, like nothing, no significant health issues. And then when I graduated college in 2014, I started noticing that my health was just like deteriorating, and I was just having really bad gastrointestinal issues that were like pretty severe. So I was seeing different gastroenterologists, like just going to them, telling them like, listen, like I've lost like 60 pounds in 6 months and like I don't feel well. I feel like I'm gonna faint every few hours. I'm blacking out. Um, and they were like, okay, they took it seriously. And so I did a colonoscopy and an endoscopy at that point, because they wanted to rule out Crohn's disease. They wanted to rule out ulcerative colitis. And so at that point, I had my endoscopy and colonoscopy done, and everything checked out normal, which is obviously positive that nothing super severe was going on, but it wasn't really explaining like my severe stomach pain, all the weight loss. And so when I saw my doctor back in the office, he was like, I would actually say that a lot of women would love your problem of like losing a ton of weight. And so at that point I was like, well, that's not exactly, like I could see my ribs, like I could see like all these different bones, like I was sick and I wasn't feeling well at all. And I feel like that's the most important thing. Like we can look a certain way, but it's so much different. Like I was model thin. I think I was like a size 0 at a 6-foot frame. And I was getting all these different like modeling offers from people just like walking down the street, but nobody knew I was so sick inside. Like I was like, I'm dying, people. But so we can look a certain way, but our health picture is so much different. And that's such an internal journey. And I remember just feeling so stuck at that point. And I was like, okay, well, Western medicine is great, but it kind of felt like it was a dead end, because they were just like, okay, you have IBS and that's like all we can basically do to help you. There's nothing really, just kind of like live with it. And so I remember I just called Kiria because she's been one of my good friends. And I was just telling her, like, I can't function anymore. I can't work because I don't feel well. I was a teacher at this point, and I would have to go hide in my car like during breaks because I felt like I was going to physically pass out. And this wasn't happening on like a monthly basis. This was every single day. And it was horrible. And I was 22. I wanted to live my life and hang out with friends and work. And I couldn't do any of that. So I called Kiria. And Kiria has been just this health, I call her my health fairy. She has always just been so knowledgeable with everything, health, nutrition, disease, everything. And I call her and I tell her I'm not feeling well. And she was like, you know what? Have you ever thought about doing a food allergy panel? And I was like, yeah, I've never actually thought about that before. And so I got a food allergy panel done. And I went to seeing a different doctor now, and he walks in and he goes, I've literally never seen so many food allergies on a single person before, on any patient before. And so it was really Kiria at that point that was like the pivotal turning point of my health, because then I could kind of figure out what was going on with my stomach, take out all the irritants, and then baby steps in the right direction. And she was the only person in my life pointing me that direction. So that's kind of how my journey started with her, nutrition wise. And obviously our friendship had been sustained longer than that. But I really, like, when I say she saved my life, like legit, I was dying. So she did.
Thank you. That's so sweet. So how are you feeling now? Like, I know that was a long time ago, but since doing like the food allergy test and learning about more of your GI issues and like the fundamental root imbalance of them, like how has that changed the way that you're eating or living or feeling?
Oh my gosh, my whole life is totally changed. I feel like when you go through a period of your life where you don't have your health, you realize that if you don't really have your health, like you can't function to your highest capacity. And that was my biggest learning point, was like, I wanted to give so much, like in my life, just career, professionally, in my friendships. But I really, like, I had to pull back from everything. I had to move home. I couldn't work. I couldn't go to school. Like, I just had to rebuild my life, because when you don't have your health, like, you can't do what you feel like you were designed to do. And that is so limiting when like internally, when you want to live, but physically you're shackled down. And I think that was so hard for me. So kind of now how I live, like, I like take my health so seriously now, because I know what it's like not to have your health. So a few years ago, I decided, I kept trying to eat out with my friends and my family for birthdays and stuff. And it was my sister's like 27th birthday. This was probably 3 years ago. And we went out to eat, and I have, all these food sensitivities now because my stomach just freaked out, and I ordered a salad, but then they added like all this stuff to it, and I ended up getting super sick after. And I realized, that's it. This is like, I don't care anymore. I'm just going to cook for myself. And so I've been cooking for myself for the last 3 years, which is like, obviously every day, to be food prepping. But it's really funny when I tell people, because they're like, wow, that's kind of how we're supposed to be living, just like making your own food every day and eating fresh things. So it's been really nice to have even random people that will see me pull out my snacks or pull out my lunches, because if you know me, I always have stuff on me to eat. So it's really just like changed my whole life. I'm super on top of my supplements, my probiotics. I was on digestive enzymes, hydrochloric acid. Like, I was just on my A game in terms of that, because you really learn the lesson. Like, if you don't have your health, it makes your quality of life just plummet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that. And now you are a health expert too, right? Like, after going through this journey, you chose to study. Will you talk a little bit about that?
Of course. Well, I think you really inspired me, because you were someone that had such a passion for health, and you realized, like, you know what, I want to do this. I want to help other people. And I think that's like kind of what happened to me, because I know the depths of it, and just not feeling well. And I first started studying it for myself, because I realized I need to figure out something in order to try to thrive, to try to improve my quality of life. So I just have like stacks on stacks of nutrition books. And then I decided that I wanted to go to school for it. So I went to Bowman College. It's up in Berkeley, and I did their distance learning program, because I realized I didn't want to do long distance with my husband. So I did their course online. And I just finished in September, and it's been amazing. It's so cool to see how you can really heal the body through nutrition, and how everybody's body is different, and figuring out the mechanisms that work specifically for you.
Absolutely. Yeah. So happy to have you in this world, because we need more people to help. It's so important. And to think that you can heal the body through food is amazing. So what would you say to somebody who's like really struggling with their health right now, and they just kind of feel hopeless and maybe a little lost, like they've tried so many things or gone to see so many people? What advice would you share with them?
Absolutely. I think that when you feel like you're at the bottom, it's so hard to feel like, am I ever going to feel normal? Am I ever going to feel better? And I think the answer is yes. Like, I definitely feel like healing takes time. It didn't, like, getting sick didn't happen overnight. So healing isn't going to happen overnight. It's been, gosh, I got sick in 2014. It's been 5 years, and I still have to do all of these things to kind of be functional. So it just takes time. And I really do feel like knowing the right people, or working with the right people. And it honestly kind of takes a team. Like, I know with so many different conditions, like, you need, the functional medicine practitioner and the holistic nutritionist, and perhaps like Western medicine as well. Like, it can be a very holistic, integrated approach. But I think that there is hope. And I think it's so inspiring, because especially now in our day and age, we have so much access to things. And for instance, if you need to be gluten-free, if you have stomach issues or anything, before, I feel like the gluten-free options were so limited, and now it's so vast. You can have brown rice pasta, which probably wasn't a thing 20 years ago. So I think that it's really encouraging knowing that we have more access and more resources now than we ever have had.
Absolutely. Would you recommend working with me?
Oh, absolutely. I feel like I've studied nutrition, but I honestly feel like you're like my mother. Like you are just like such a wealth of wisdom on so many different levels. And I feel like what really sets you apart than working with a lot of different other holistic practitioners is the fact that you do functional blood chemistry. I can't stress that enough, but it's like people can come with different symptomology, different symptom complaints, but you like start from the source. Like you just tackle it and you're like, okay, let's intake all your symptoms, but let's do a functional blood chemistry lab and see what's going on the cellular level and what's going on physically with like, let's check all your organs. So I think that's something that sets you apart so much from other people, is that you really look at it from like the root cause and see if there's any imbalances within the body that way versus just looking at someone's symptoms. And you do both.
Thank you. What is functional blood chemistry analysis for people who don't know?
So basically, functional blood chemistry analysis is you would do a regular lab just like you would do when you go to your primary care physician, but the ranges that functional practitioners use are so much more kind of narrow than just say like a regular lab. So it will highlight and it will mark different like blood markers that are even just a little bit kind of off, versus if you did a regular lab, if it was it basically like a functional blood chemistry lab, their normal ranges are a lot narrower. And like just say if you did one through a primary care, their ranges would be a bit wider. So for instance, it could miss things like if there's a little bit of thyroid imbalance going on, or if your liver is a little bit elevated. So it kind of catches things before they're full blown issues. And I think it works in prevention that way, because you can see what's going on and then kind of work to correct it before it becomes this ginormous issue.
Absolutely. Yep. Functional blood chemistry is the jam. We love it. So it just helps, exactly like you said, illuminate like, why is this happening, right? Because I know when I struggled with my health issues too, and like you with yours, sometimes it's just like, why is this happening? Like you're trying everything, right, to fix it, and just having like that clarity can be worth its weight in gold. So that's
Absolutely. And sorry, I just thought of one thought. Going back to the functional blood chemistry, I had mine done like maybe 2 years ago, and one of my it was my thyroid antibody that was off. And she was like, they're not going to diagnose this in Western medicine for about another 10 years until your thyroid is like fully like destroyed. Because when you have antibodies, they're basically attacking my own thyroid. And it was very interesting because I just got blood work done since then. Like it's been 2 years, and I know you're supposed to get blood work done every year, but it had been a while. And my primary care physician actually said the same exact thing. She was like, your thyroid antibody is a little bit elevated, but it's not going to be full blown like Hashimoto's in another 10 years. So I thought that, or like, until later. And so I thought that was so cool to see how it was consistent, the consistent message between like both a functional practitioner and a Western practitioner saying like the range is a little off, but we won't diagnose it, or it won't be like a full blown thing until down the line.
Yeah. And that's so powerful, because maybe it won't become a full blown thing since you have the warning now, right? You can kind of like take preventative action, which is so huge. That could change.
That's my goal. That is honestly my goal. I'm like, if I can do anything to prevent this by keeping my stress down, by sleeping, all the lifestyle, all the diet. And so that's honestly my goal.
Cool. Last question. What would you say to somebody who is kind of on the fence about like joining my program or working with me, or just getting health support in some way? Like if somebody felt like they wanted to, but they just don't, they were a little bit on the fence, like what would you say to them?
I would say that it's an investment really in yourself and your future. And just knowing that, I think that a lot of people in our culture, they need it. For instance, like they'll go out to eat and they don't know that they like having a stomach ache after you eat or something, or having migraines after you eat, that's not normal. And I think like a lot of times people don't know, like, oh, every time I eat, I'm supposed to feel well and I'm supposed to feel energized. Like I'm not supposed to feel tired or have brain fog or have a stomach ache or be bloated or this, that, or the other. So I think it's just so cool to have to work with someone, because you gain awareness and this consciousness of, what am I putting into my body? What are my health goals? And it's just like feeling like you're on some sort of path, like you're not just walking by yourself mindlessly without some sort of goal. And I feel like what the coolest thing that practitioners, and especially like you, Kiria, is, it's guidance, but you do it so well because you're like a cheerleader, a coach, like you do like emotional and mental health. Like you're such an advocate of mental health, and you bring like the spiritual health too. And I just think what's really cool about you is that you attack nutrition and like lifestyle from every single dimension. It's like mental, physical, spiritual, social. I know that you just like encompass this whole person approach. And so I say it's worth it.
Thank you. Thank you, Julia. I love you. I so appreciate you taking the time to share today. Thank you. Is there anything else that you would like to share or speak to?
I'm trying to think. Yeah, I honestly think that the key to your health picture is what you're doing on a consistent daily basis. Oh my gosh, I can't even talk. What you're doing on a consistent daily basis, and your habits. So it's just really, like I said, gaining that awareness of what are you doing on a daily basis? What habits are you building? Because you could eat a salad once in your life, and you know, that's fantastic, but that's only once. And the same thing goes like if you eat dessert, you know, just like letting yourself enjoy that. Like it's not going to be dessert for every meal. So it's kind of just like allowing yourself to think, what am I doing on a consistent daily basis that's contributing to my health, and where do I want to go from here?
Absolutely. Wise words, my dear. Thank you so much again. And I look forward to talking with you again soon.
Bye.
Bye.